Hey guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Rift and this is Shadow of the Rift. Now before we begin, I'd like to welcome you to the channel and thank you for clicking on the video. Let's jump right into it. So I recently downloaded the demo for Outriders and I can't say it's good or bad, but mostly the game is just average for me. So let me explain. So overall, it is an average game, but it does have the potential to be a really good game. So remember, this is already a demo, so most of what we see in the demo should generally be the same thing that we see in the game, unless the game is again delayed for more time, which I don't think will happen. Now the final score I gave the game out of 5 is 2.5, mainly because of a few pros and cons. We'll be talking more about pros and cons while we're discussing. So the game sells itself as a third-person looter-shooter game with cover mechanics and also a lot of gunplay. 4 classes to choose from. I specifically chose the Trickster because that main character that I think would fit my playstyle, and it did really fit the playstyle of the game on how the game wants you to play it. The game wants you to be more aggressive, while the main way of healing yourself is through killing your opponents. That mechanic is really interesting for me. One of the things that make this game really stands out because it has this really unique mechanic that I personally like. But there are a lot of other things that I don't like about the game, and we're going to be talking about them more. So let's start with the cons. First thing that I noticed was the game isn't optimized too well on PC. At least that's from what I experienced myself. A lot of the times my frame rates would drop from 60 to 80, would drop to 30 when there's a lot of enemies or a lot happening around on the screen, which is something that gets really annoying and frustrating. And I did check online and specifically on Reddit to see if anyone else was having the same issues. It appears that it wasn't just me. So most of the people on Reddit had really good rigs to run the PC on ultra settings, and they expected to get 60 frames per second. But a lot of them were having the same experience as I was, where the frame rates would drop constantly, especially when you're at the hub area of the game where there's stores and a lot of people around. The frame rates would constantly drop and be really annoying. So if you're having the same experience, comment down below and tell me. And also if you're having the same experience on PS4, PS5 or Xbox or wherever else it's released, tell me down below if you're having the same issues, because I'd like to know. The next thing I'd like to talk about is the mechanics. A lot of the mechanics and the movement feel really clunky and sometimes feels really off. One of the examples of this is when you're trying to take cover, because one of the main core aspects of the game is taking cover. Now whenever you take cover, you have to press spacebar on PC and your character will automatically duck behind the cover. The thing is, it doesn't happen all the time. Sometimes you'll just be running around left and right, pressing space, and your character won't duck into cover or won't get into cover position, which is really awkward. Next thing that I'd like to talk about is jumping over walls or jumping over low walls or low cover. Same thing with taking cover. Just feels really off because sometimes you'd be pressing control, try and vault over a low wall. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And the weird thing about it is that there are walls that look like you can vault over, but you can't. There are walls that you can't vault over, well, at least it looks like you can't vault over them, but you can, which is really weird. The other mechanic is a little bit about the combat. Now, the combat split into two. There's a good side to it, and there's also a really bad side to it. I'll talk about the bad side first. The bad side that I noticed is that whenever you're getting hit by any enemies with their guns or their other weapons, I don't know if it's just my playthrough, but it felt like I didn't hear any of their guns going off, or I didn't feel like my character was getting hit by any bullets or any melee attacks or any abilities at all. The only time I would know I was getting hit was that red icon showing you where you were getting hit from, and occasionally your character will grunt when they're getting hit, and sometimes you won't even notice you're taking damage until you're like 40% health when the camera turns red and it's indicating that you're low on health, which is just really weird and I think should be fixed. Again, I don't know if it's just me, but that's what I experienced during my playthrough, and that was consistent throughout the whole demo. Next thing would be the camera shaking during cutscenes. Now that, I guess that's just me, but it's really annoying to look at when you're trying to be immersed on the cutscene and just the camera is just constantly shaking, like there's an earthquake. It's like a monkey holding the camera and scratching its butt all the time. So yeah. The other thing is the loading screen. The loading screen in this game is really weird. So how the loading screen works, or when you're moving from one zone to another, is that your character you'll go up to a door, you interact by pressing E. When you press E, your character will show the animation of opening the door. But sometimes it'll go to black, show the animation of opening the door, walking through the door, and then you're gonna go back to black again, and then go to the actual loading screen. I don't know why it's designed like this, but yeah, it's really, really weird. So, after talking about the cons, we're now going to be talking about the pros. Now, there's a few pros that I like. So, there's a couple of pros that I want to talk about specifically. The first thing is the good concept. Now, there's a lot of really unique mechanics to this game, like how you heal by being aggressive, and also the slow pace of the game. Well, I think it's slow pace. I don't know if that's how the game wants you to play it. It feels like it's a slow paced game, but I played it at a really fast pace, mainly because Trickster and how he likes to play the game. So I don't really know about the play style of the game specifically, if they want you to play slow because of the cover mechanics, or if they want you to play fast. So yeah, I mean, I listed it under as a pro because I do like the game mechanics of the game, where you have to heal. The only way you can heal is by defeating enemies, and I guess there's a uniqueness to the playstyle of different characters. The other pros is the interesting setting. So the interesting part about the setting, well, although it's not something that we haven't seen before, where the Earth is doomed and this is the last hope for humanity, although that concept has been done 1,000 of times, it's still really interesting because the world itself, Enoch, looks really cool. There's a lot of creatures that I do want to find in game and interact with. Now, I mentioned about the combat mechanics having a good and a bad part. So we already talked about the bad part. Now we're going to be talking about the good part. So a lot of the draw in this game, at least for me, is the skills that your character has. For example, the Trickster has you get to use 4 of the Trickster's skills. The first one was a temporal blade, where it slashes in front of you and hits all of the enemies in front of you within that radius, and they they dissolve to their skeletal form and they eventually explode, which is really cool. The other ability is a slow trap, where you create a bubble and everything in it will slow down. All the bullets and the effects and everything just looks really, really nice. And it reminds me a lot about Dark Terror, the faceless void on Dota, if you know that game. I haven't personally tried any of the other characters in the game right now because I don't think I will have too much fun with any of the other characters, but I did watch a few content creators that were playing different characters, and they do look like it's fun. Now, next that I would like to talk about is the gunplay. I think one of the main draw points for this game is the gunplay. Since this game was created by People Can Fly, a developer that helped create Gears of War, you could really see the connection between Gears of War and this game, and the gunplay really shines. So I loved using the shotgun at close quarters. I love how the enemies would interact when you shoot them, especially the shotgun that I found where you would shoot someone and they freeze. That was really cool for me. The other gun that I really love to use is the sniper rifle. The sniper and getting headshots, just super satisfying to use. And yeah, the other 2 guns, the assault rifle and the pistol. The assault rifle, it's nothing new, I think. It looks cool, but I didn't really use it too much because I didn't like how it felt. And the pistol, I never really used the pistol. I think I only used it once during the prologue. And yeah, I don't really see a use for that, but maybe there are loot in game when the game's released that has really powerful pistols. So, you know, so yeah. So the last pro that I'd like to talk about is the interesting story. Now again, the story, it's not really unique. It's not something we haven't seen before. But again, this, if they can make the story really interesting with the characters, if they can make the characters and the NPCs really likable, I think that the story has the potential to carry this game as well on the single player aspect of the game. So, my final overview of this game is that I think this game has the potential to be a good game. I don't think it can be a great game, but right now I really do think that this game is very average. Maybe to make the game more interesting would be the character growth progression. I think it's not in depth enough for me, because a lot of what you get when you upgrade your character skills, so character progression in game, is nothing to write home about. Most of what you see in the skill trees affect your weapon damage, your health percentage, your armor piercing, your armor, and your skill damage. So it's nothing to write home about, and it's nothing that we haven't seen before. Now, as for the loot aspect of the game, I really can't gauge it too well right now, mainly because the game's still too short to actually see if the loot system is really good. I've seen a couple of videos online where they're doing a few exploits. I never tried it myself, but I haven't watched it myself yet. But yeah, the setting of the story so far is very interesting, but it's nothing that we haven't seen before. If they're able to make the story and the world more engaging to explore, I think the single player aspect of the game can be fun and can carry this game, at least for players that like single player action games. Personally, I want to explore the world a lot, like what I mentioned, because of the creatures and the world itself is just really interesting for me. So the final verdict is a 2.5. Again, it's a really average game. A lot of the mechanics have already been done in other games, and I don't think that this game in particular does anything with that mechanics to make it unique or stand out. But it does have the potential to be a good game to play with your friends, and we'll have to see that when it launches. So if you're gonna ask me if I'm gonna buy it when it launches, I'll probably wait for a few more reviews about the game itself when it launches, but I'll sure be on the lookout for it. So there we go. That's my review of the Outriders demo that just came out. If you haven't played it, I advise you look at it, because it does have the potential to be a good game. If you like looter shooters, it's something that you could play as well. Tell me down below if you think what I said about the game is fair. If not, tell me down below as well, because I'd like to have a discussion with everyone. And yeah, thank you guys for watching the video today. If you like the video, press that like button, subscribe, because I really do want to build a gaming community where we could talk to each other, discuss about different games, recommend games to each other. If you have that same plan, if you want something like that as well, I highly suggest that you subscribe, because I do want to build a gaming community in this channel as well for gamers like myself that's really passionate about gaming. And of course, subscribe if you want to see more game reviews and gameplays. Thank you again. I'll talk to you soon. Peace out.